So Trump is promising concealed carry reciprocity. I did a video on this a couple of days ago, and I know how a lot of y'all feel about this. You've made that known, which is perfectly fine. You know how I feel about this as well, but I also want to say that I think it's a good stepping stone to get us to our end goal, which is constitutional carry throughout the entire United States, where you don't need to ask for permission. But at the end of the day, I think this may be a good stepping stone for us to get there. Well, there's some gun control groups that are already promising to stop this Trump promise in its tracks. The problem is, it actually goes against everything they have in their own states. The most restrictive states, when it comes to firearms, already have this thing in place, and it's something that they fought for, and yet they don't want it throughout the entire United States, which is really interesting. So it's going to make it actually fairly easy to kind of tear their argument apart because it just doesn't make any sense. Now, of course, whether you agree, disagree, doesn't matter. Leave your opinion down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, let me just say, when it comes to gun control groups, unlike a lot of them and the way they view pro-gun people, I don't see them as some kind of devil in disguise, right? I think that a lot of them believe what they're doing is for a good purpose, but the way in which they want to get to an end goal and the way that we want to get to an end goal is very different. On our side, we're not willing to strip the rights away from anybody. We're not willing to put any kind of restriction on an actual right, okay? This is not a privilege. It's not something you should have to ask for permission for and all that kind of stuff, which is going to come into play here. But at the end of the day, this is something that you, me, and everybody has a right to. So anyways, I'm reading an article, Every Town for Gun Safety, right? This is one of the bigger gun control groups out there. And they're talking about Trump's concealed carry reciprocity. Now, what does this mean? This basically means that if you have a concealed weapons permit, that you are able to then carry across all 50 states. So think of it as national reciprocity, essentially. Once you get the permit, you go through that process. Doesn't matter if you go from Indiana to Illinois. Doesn't matter if you go from New York to Vermont, New Hampshire to New Jersey to New York, California to Oregon, California to Nevada. Doesn't matter. You can carry wherever you want to now, as long as you have the permit. Now, constitutional carry would, of course, mean that now you don't have to ask permission. If you are a United States citizen and you are legally allowed to have a firearm, you can carry wherever you want to in the United States. So concealed carry reciprocity, again, I think is just a good stepping stone to get to constitutional carry. Now, there's already a lot of states that have reciprocity with each other. So there's a great concealed carry map that you can look on, USCCA. A lot of the good, concealed carry companies or concealed carry focused companies have maps where you can click on your state, and once you get a permit here, then you can carry in these other states that recognize your permit. Now, there's also constitutional carry states, individual states now. I think we're up to, 27, 28 now that are actually constitutional carry, meaning you don't need a permit. You don't need to ask the state for permission anymore. You can just carry your firearm. In a lot of states, it's openly or concealed. Now, Vice President of Government Affairs, Monisha Henry, is, who was a part of this article. It was ABC or NBC or MSNBC or whoever the hell it was. Anyways, one of the first things she said is, I want to make this clear that, if you're traveling from this state to this state, well, now law enforcement doesn't know who actually has guns. Well, there's a lot of states now. I think we're up to 18, right? With South Carolina became one of those states where you have no duty to inform at all, right? Now, there's other states where you only have a duty to inform if you're asked. There are some states where you have to tell an officer upon contact, right, that you are a concealed weapons permit holder. This is how South Carolina was for the longest time until we went to constitutional carry. You're already talking about almost 20 states, almost half of the United States, where there's no duty to inform anyways. Now, of course, there are some other workarounds that some states have, where a concealed weapons permit is tied to your driver's license. So in those states, police officers already know that you're a concealed weapons permit holder. The point is that law enforcement, at the end of the day, it's really none of their business. Now, I know some people take that as me being like anti-cop, which I'm totally not. But at the end of the day, right, not all police officers are good police officers. And not all police officers have your best interest at heart. And we know from, unfortunately, a lot of videos that are shared on the internet that a lot of them don't respect your rights, right? They push back against people that know their rights. And so your right to carry a firearm, your constitutional right that has been recognized in a lot of these states, should be superseded just because you come in contact with a police officer. Police should already assume, right, because you're an American citizen, that you are carrying a firearm. Does that make their job any more or less dangerous? No. Because if your intentions are to hurt a police officer, at the end of the day, you're probably not a permit holder anyways, and you're not following the law as it is. So in no way am I advocating that at all. They already have a tough enough job, and I, honest to God, respect the ones that are good at their job, that are there to actually protect and serve, right? I'm just saying that even the really good ones, the ones that I really do respect in that position, it's still none of their business. No additional information needs to be given to any of them. Now you may say, why? What's the problem with letting a police officer know, right? Doesn't that just keep everybody honest in this kind of conversation? Well, no, because at the end of the day, one thing you have to understand about people that are serious about their rights when it comes to firearms, and really any rights, there is a built-in distrust meter that Americans have. This is something we are born with, and I 100% believe that. Unlike other countries where you'll hear a lot of this, oh, well, they're just trying to help you out, oh, the government's going to help you out. You even hear a lot of this in the United States, right? We know this, right? The government's there to help you out, right? Well, no. At the end of the day, there is a certain amount of distrust, I believe, we have to have as Americans, because that's what keeps us free. If you believe totally and fully in the government and government officials, you will be disappointed each and every time. The day Americans, or at least the majority of Americans, say, oh yeah, I fully trust in the government to take care of me, we're going to have a real serious problem in this country. Now, the other thing that this lady said, which I find very interesting, is first of all, she says that, you're allowing people to carry firearms without permits. Well, conceal carry reciprocity, that doesn't even make sense, because that's exactly what you're doing. You're requiring people to get permits in order to carry in all 50 states, but that's what a lot of these restrictive states already do. They want you to get a CPL or a CHL or a CCL or FID, FOID, have your PPE for the CDC and AAARP, I don't know, any other acronyms that they throw out there. But essentially, these cards in a lot of states, they're required for you to purchase firearms or even to purchase ammunition. Meaning that in a lot of states, you already have to go get your permit, take government, state-mandated classes in order to be trusted enough to buy a firearm. New York, Illinois, California, a lot of these states already require you to have some form of additional identification. It's not just good enough that you have a state-issued ID or even your driver's license. They want you and make you go through an extra process. And again, in a lot of these states, it is an actual permitting process, which is exactly what they're already doing. Along with being super restrictive on how many firearms you can buy in a 30-day period, mandatory waiting periods, assault weapons bans, magazine bans, duty to retreat, and except inside of your home. A lot of these places are super restrictive, and yet they have the highest crime rates. So let's say, like when I was going to South Dakota for Sturgis this past year, right? You go through Illinois, right? Chicago, some of these places. I mean, dude, it's one of the, it's like right there kind of in the center. I'm looking at a map right now. Kind of like right there in the center of a lot of the places that you go, you know, up north or to the Midwest or even out west. It's kind of right there, right? So you put people in a bad predicament. I think if you get caught in Illinois the first time, if you don't have one of their permits, of course, which isn't recognized by like any other state, you know, it's a misdemeanor up to a year in jail and $2,500. After that, now you're talking about felonies. So you already want people to get a permit to show that they are responsible enough. Again, I don't agree with this, but to show that they're responsible enough to own a firearm or to even buy a firearm. And yet, if you do it in all 50 states, all you're doing is giving an incentive to people to ask permission, yes, but to go get training, to be safer with their firearm so they can travel freely across your state and not have to worry about losing their rights just because they pass a couple of imaginary lines. And it's just one more thing that they feel like they can't control, even though they're already asking citizens in the most restrictive states to already go through this process. They just don't want you to have reciprocity with their state, because if your state is less stringent on the training, or, you know, less hours, or, you know, they allow easier access, they think that somehow you're going to be more dangerous than people that won't even follow this in the first place, that are already carrying firearms in your cities, causing destruction to people that wish they had the right to have a firearm and wish they had a right to be able to carry that firearm. All you're doing at the end of the day is stopping the law-abiding citizens from doing something they probably want to do anyways. And that's simply make it home to their kids, to their spouses, and just make it home in general without having to worry about thugs, criminals, and gangs causing havoc in their cities anyways. With the illegally purchased guns, at the end of the day, all they're doing is hurting the people that just want to protect themselves and have freedom to travel in whatever state they want to. And that constitutional right, that again, I know you got to ask permission for, but that stepping stone to get us where we want to be, again, they just want to do it so they can continue to stand on their perceived moral high ground. Makes no sense at all. So again, they're saying they're going to fight all this. House, Senate, presidency, conceal carry reciprocity. If it doesn't happen in the next 2 years, or in the next year even, you got a serious problem here. So, of course, I'll keep you guys informed on everything that's going on. But at the end of the day, I think 100% this will get passed for sure. And so they can continue to fight it all they want, but at the end of the day, I think this one is definitely going through and is a good stepping stone to get us where we need to be. I'd love to hear your opinion. No matter if you agree or disagree, let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one, and as always, hold them down.